Welcome back to Celebriot, the place where secrets unfold, hidden truths are revealed, and shocking twists keep you glued to the screen. And today's story, well, it's one of the most chilling and jaw-dropping events that has shaken both law enforcement and the public. Picture this: a peaceful Sunday morning, a church filled with families, children, and people who only came to worship. But in a matter of moments, that calm was shattered by gunfire, leaving the entire community stunned, horrified, and searching for answers. Now, here's where things get even more intense. Authorities at the federal level quickly declared this tragedy as a hate crime and an act of domestic terrorism, specifically targeting Catholics. But wait, local police weren't ready to go that far. They claimed the motive was still unclear, and that it was too soon to officially call it a hate crime. So right from the start, there's a disagreement between federal agents and local police. Was this a direct attack on a religious group, or was there something else behind it? That's exactly the kind of twist that keeps everyone on edge, and you can bet Celebriot is here to break it down. But let's rewind. Who was this shooter? What pushed him over the edge? And why did he leave behind a chilling trail of writings, YouTube posts, and cryptic drawings that pointed to exactly what he planned to do? Well, according to the FBI, this individual wasn't just acting on impulse. Oh no, this was planned, calculated, and terrifyingly detailed. We're talking about drawings of guns, sketches of church pews, and a disturbing obsession with past school shooters. He even scheduled an online video to go live at the same time as the attack, a move that screams, this was meant to send a message. And here's the kicker: the shooter wasn't some mysterious outsider. Authorities are digging into his background, searching his homes, and even questioning his connections to the very church he attacked. Was this personal, or was it all about hate? Law enforcement has already executed multiple search warrants, uncovering more weapons, more notes, and more disturbing signs that this person was preparing for something far bigger. And the weapons? Not illegal, not stolen, each of them was legally purchased, and not too long ago. That's what makes this case even scarier. Now think about it. A man armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, all purchased, legally walks into a church with children present. The writings, the timing, the online postings, all of it paints the picture of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. But here's where it gets even darker. Investigators discovered that the shooter idolized other infamous mass shooters from history. He studied them, admired their twisted legacies, and even made references to the same music bands that Columbine shooters once obsessed over. Creepy? Absolutely. But it also shows how deep this person's fascination with violence really went. And this brings us to the big question: what signs did people miss? Because when neighbors, classmates, and even former friends were asked about him, many described him as quiet, likable, and harmless. Yet behind that quiet personality was a storm, building a storm that exploded in the worst way possible. So buckle up, because in this video we're taking you through the entire case, from the shocking attack itself, to the disputes between federal and local police, to the disturbing online trail that reveals exactly what was going on in this shooter's mind. Trust me, you don't want to miss a second of this. Now let's peel back another layer of this chilling case. If you thought the attack itself was horrifying, wait until you hear what investigators uncovered once they started digging into the shooter's life. The moment the first shots were fired, authorities rushed not just to the crime scene, but also to the shooter's personal world. And what they found paints a portrait of someone who had been quietly preparing for this moment for far longer than anyone realized. First stop, the search warrants. Law enforcement didn't waste any time. They executed 4 major raids, one at the church itself, where the attack took place, and 3 others at residences tied directly to the shooter. Inside these locations, they uncovered a stash of weapons. Yes, even more guns than the 3 already used during the attack. Multiple firearms, all sitting there, as if ready for some future plan. And here's the eerie detail. Every single one of those weapons was purchased legally. No shady backdoor deals, no stolen hardware. These were guns obtained through official channels, which raises an uncomfortable question: how many other individuals could be quietly preparing something just as dangerous, all while staying under the radar? But it wasn't just the guns that had authorities on edge. It was the digital trail. Investigators quickly turned their attention to the shooter's YouTube account, and that's where the pieces of this twisted puzzle really began to come together. A video, scheduled for release at the exact time of the shooting, appeared online. And this wasn't just any video. It was packed with hateful messages, violent rhetoric, and disturbing sketches. There were drawings of guns, sketches of a church interior with pews, and even captions that suggested the shooter had rehearsed the attack in his mind long before it happened. Can you imagine the level of calculation here? It wasn't random. It wasn't spontaneous. This was a performance, a dark, destructive show meant to terrify. And if that's not enough, let's talk about the writing on the weapons themselves. Yes, you heard that right. Just like we've seen in other notorious cases, the shooter scribbled disturbing words and symbols onto the guns. Some referenced music, some referenced past tragedies, but all of it screamed one thing. This individual wanted to leave behind a legacy of fear. The deeper investigators dug, the more unsettling the picture became. Notes and writings found in his personal belongings revealed a disturbing obsession with past mass shooters. This wasn't someone who just snapped overnight. He studied them, idolized them, even followed the same obscure details like their favorite bands. One chilling detail: a notebook entry mentioning a band famously connected to the Columbine shooters. Now, the band itself has long condemned violence and wanted nothing to do with that tragic association, but the fact that this shooter latched onto it shows just how far the obsession went. And it wasn't only the weapons or the notes. Investigators began pulling at every thread, checking his social media accounts, old friends, classmates, neighbors, and even family. What they found was shocking in its own way. Nobody seemed to see this coming. Former classmates described him as quiet but likable. Neighbors thought he was just another regular guy who kept to himself. Some even admitted they had lost touch completely, never imagining that silence was hiding such darkness. But for law enforcement, this only raised more red flags. How could someone plan something so detailed, leave behind such an obvious trail of clues online, and yet no one around him realized what was about to happen? At this stage of the investigation, the FBI declared with confidence that the shooter had acted alone. No accomplices, no wider network, just one individual, fully responsible for carrying out this plan. But even with that announcement, a haunting question lingers. If he was capable of pulling this off by himself, what would have happened if he hadn't been caught at this stage? Were there bigger, darker plans down the road? And here's where the real debate begins. Federal investigators call it a hate crime. Local police hesitate, saying the motive isn't yet clear. But between the writings, the timed YouTube video, and the choice of target a church full of Catholics, it's hard not to see the disturbing picture forming. One thing is certain: this wasn't random violence. It was deliberate, calculated, and fueled by hate. As the investigation rolled forward, something unusual started bubbling to the surface, something that added a whole new layer of drama to this already dark story. You'd think that after such a horrific attack, all branches of law enforcement would be on the same page. But in this case, not at all. On one side, we had federal officials, the FBI, and even Director Kash Patel himself, coming out strong and direct. To them, there was no doubt, this was an act of domestic terrorism. It was a hate crime targeting Catholics. Full stop, clear as day. But then, on the other side, stood the local police, particularly the Minneapolis police chief, who refused to use that label. When pressed by reporters, he stayed firm, almost evasive, repeating over and over, "It's too early to determine the motive. We don't yet know if this was a hate crime." And just like that, a very public disagreement unfolded. Now, why does this matter? Because when you have two major law enforcement bodies sending different messages, it creates confusion. The public is left wondering, what's the truth? Was this an attack on a religion, or was it just random violence? And here's where the media spotlight turned this case into front-page gossip. News anchors, talk shows, and online commentators all jumped on the story, dissecting every word, every press conference, every scrap of evidence that had been released. Federal agents pointing to the shooter's writings, the YouTube video, the choice of target, all of it screamed hate crime. Meanwhile, locals claimed they were still looking into connections, refusing to commit to any one theory. This back and forth created an atmosphere of suspense and mystery. It wasn't just about the crime anymore, it was about who you believed. The feds, with their hardline stance, or the locals, cautious and slow to label. But let's not forget the gossip-worthy detail, the shoot.